Thank you, Dejan, and we wish you all the best for the sake of all of Asia as you take up your position as Director Regional Office for Asia Pacific at UNEP. And indeed, you mentioned the Arctic Council and the suggestion that there should be a Himalaya Hindu Kush Council. If there is a resolution that we could have passed in this session, that is the resolution that I would propose passing. We now go into the first panel discussion. We have, as the panelist participants, we have Romina Khurshid Alam, who's a member of the National Assembly, also deeply involved in negotiations at COP and elsewhere, coordinated with the Prime Minister on climate change. Then we have Sonam Wangchuk, who's introduced in the list here as the Raman Magsaysay Award winner of 2018. That is true, but he is so much more than that. He's an educator and a true activist in the sense that over the last couple of years, in fact, he's been at the interface between politics and environment in a very real activistic sense, to the extent of being also putting into a lot of difficulties on the part of the state. We have Ayesha Khan, who's with the Civil Society Coalition of Climate Change, and as she said before, we came into the session in the green room. She would really like to talk about not so much the community issues as interstate or regional issues, if I'm right, Ayesha. And let me now introduce the participant as well as facilitator, Indrika Ratwata from Colombo. He has had a long experience through the UN on the arena of refugee affairs, including Afghan refugees in Pakistan, which means that if we are talking about poverty and how climate change impacts those in poverty more than others, then the bottommost slice, if one might say so, impacted are the refugees. And so that obviously means that Indrika has the sensitivity required to discuss climate change. Presently, you are the UN Resident Coordinator, Afghanistan. I ask you to manage the panel and participate yourself.
Thank you very much. I think the stage setting has been excellent with you and Rishan framing the thing as glacial melt as a cross-cutting, transboundary challenge for all of us. And the data is clear. Whether it's the Hindu Kush, Himalayas, the Karakoram regions, this is holding the largest reserves of fresh water outside the polar regions. And that's why it's called the water towers of South Asia. And here we're talking, as you've said already, 1.5 billion people across South Asia, and the impact it has, whether it's on agriculture, hydropower, drinking water supplies. But impacts of climate change have really turbocharged glacial melt, as you have seen. Temperatures have accelerated, and today we are looking at a retreating average of 0.3 meters per year. And in the last 4 decades, in the last 40 years, we have seen approximately 15% of glacier ice that has been lost. This is an incredible amount of glacial degradation. And this rapid glacial melting has also had one immediate knock-on effect, which we have seen, is 3,000 glacial lakes, of which 33 are considered to have been classified as highly hazardous. So the water melting, collecting, lakes forming, and then the impact that goes through that, posing serious threats of, as was already alluded to, glacial lake outbursts and floods, or as we like acronyms, GLOFs, one more fantastic acronym to our nomenclature. The UN also loves acronyms, as you know, so we are adding to this. But on a more serious note, it goes beyond the immediate impacts of the devastation, impacting infrastructure, as we talked about, disrupting livelihoods in vulnerable countries, Pakistan, India, Nepal, Bhutan in the basin, but it also contributes to long-term water scarcity, erratic river flows, prolonged drought, and then leading to desertification as well. So glacial melt as a phenomenon has a knock-on impact, as we've talked about, which are far more far-reaching in this way. What does it mean? It means, as has been alluded to by many of the speakers this morning and today, and you'll hear from our illustrious panelists, the importance really for urgent collaboration, technological innovation, and sustainable strategies at a regional level as well to mitigate the impacts of glacial melt and to really ensure the water security resources for future generations. Just 2 days ago, I was in Helmand, in a remote area of Afghanistan, sitting with some farmers. And when I asked them, what is the most important thing for you? They said, water. And I said, what's the second most important thing and the third most important thing? And they said, water and water. So I think it says it all in terms of how it impacts just in a country like Afghanistan alone, where 70% is the agrarian population relying on water and the lack thereof. And this is a phenomenon we are seeing in the South Asian region. So in the interest of time, let me not, without any further ado, our illustrious panelists have been already introduced. So let me ask them to just give us their shared insights based on their experience and their encounters with people, institutions, policies, and give us some insights. So let me start with Romina, then to Sunam and Ayesha Khan. So, Romina.
Thank you very much. For me, it's a great honor to be with such a learned panel. And of course, the people who are sitting at the other side, all the participants who have been here. I first of all really want to congratulate and want to pay a great thanks and acknowledgement to all, of course, for me, it's great to see such a learned media persons over here, and of course to the Dawn, because I believe this is the greatest need of the time, that the media's responsibility, and I really want to say that hats off to you, that you have taken a lead. And not only that, I just wanted to request that it's a great need of the time that we should come up with the International Climate Caucus on media, of the media, because I think it's all very much important when we talk about all these elements, because without that, things won't get resolved, because there are so many things which are being hidden, there are so many things which are being unfolded, there are so many things which are being said, but they have not been known to the people. But now getting back to the point and the subject which you have said, when we talk about the glaciers, when we talk about Pakistan, when we talk about our region, I always believe, and what I've learned from all the learned people and all from the experiences and from the researchers, the greatest need is to come up with global, first, of course, the global solutions, but moreover, to the regional solutions. When we talk about the Pakistan, of course, I would really like to share where that one of, about glaciers in Pakistan, one of the greatest achievement in the recent glacier inventory conducted in Pakistan, which has revealed that we have a total of 13,032 glaciers across the country. So it's a huge number. So Pakistan hosts over 13,032 glaciers, the largest number outside the polar region. This is a significant finding, of course, made possible through the collaboration, I want to share with you, of the experts from EVK2CNR, along with the universities and the government institutions of Gilgit-Baltistan. So, of course, when we talk about rapid melting due to the rising temperature poses risk on the glacial lake outburst floods, affecting millions of people. And then, of course, when we talk about the Indus River, which relies heavily on glacial melt, it is at a risk, of course, threatening water security. But when we talk about the regional collaboration and, the solutions, I really wanted to share over here, because I'm glad that it's almost, we all are from, if we talk about Nepal, Sri Lanka, all like countries, a region, like when we talk about the importance of the SARC, it is moreover important, like we have seen from COP1 to COP29. Then, of course, we have seen COP16, which has been recently done at the Riyadh. That was about the land desertification and biodiversity and so much more, which is going to be conducted next in Bhutan. So, the most important and the missing component is the collaboration. The developing countries and the regions need to sit together to come up with the solutions, because until and unless we are not going to do that, there are lots of challenges which are going when you went to a village and over there you asked the need. So they said water, water, and water. I believe this is moreover now climate challenge is no more just a climate challenge. It's a human rights issue. It's a need of a time. It is need of, it's like, and as per the constitution, of course, 25A of Pakistan, and of course in all other countries, we all know that everyone have the right to live. So climate change is also something which is very much needed. If we talk about the glaciers specifically, the most nearby, the communities, how they're suffering, how they're getting vulnerable, and in that we are trying moreover to engage the local communities. Yes, of course, we do have different projects on which we have worked with the project like GLOF2 as well, and in that also Recharge Pakistan as well, which we are going to talk in next few minutes. But I think the most important for me, as very rightly said, that we should, at least from this panel, we should come up with some resolution where that not only in the state, I would really like to share that at the COP, we tried our level best to sit along with the other countries. We welcomed, because this is something now, whatever was happened or is happening in Pakistan or in Bhutan or in another country, it is not going to stay there. It is going to be moved on and on. Today is Pakistan, tomorrow it can be someone else. So as soon as possible, because I believe this is more over the war footage situation. So I think in that, I just wanted to say that more important is to come up with the regional solutions. We need to sit together to come up with the mechanism, to not only the mechanism, the policy, and to generate the risk pool. And that risk pool doesn't mean the money also. That means, moreover, the capacity, how we can learn from each other's best practices. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Romina. Now let me turn to Sonam and hear from him on innovations in sustainable glacier management and the importance of bringing in the blending of traditional knowledge with science. Over to you, Sonam.
Thank you very much. Salam alaikum and namaskar, and Jule as we greet in very, very cold place called Ladakh. For you, it might be interesting to know that the region of Ladakh is where Indus River begins, on which most of Pakistan depends, and what happens there will have an effect here, and what's happening there is not very good. Now, about sustainable ways of managing the water towers of Asia. I think water towers was very aptly termed. Water towers, the strength is in its height. So coming to specifics, I would say the best way to deal with water is to stop it at the height that it is. Height is a great resource, more than oil, I would say. Mountains are what gives height to water, whether in frozen forms or in permafrost or in flowing water. Now, stop it where it is should be our strategy. And stopping it there and then making it useful downstream can be done in two ways. One would be freeze and refreeze. Freeze it when it flows in cold mountains so that it can be used in spring and summer when farmers need it. In other words, artificial glaciers. That's what we do in Ladakh. Artificial glaciers, man-made, during winters when nobody needs water for agriculture, to keep it till spring and summer when everybody needs. So freeze every drop where possible, and then it melts and goes down. This freezing can be of streams, it can be higher up of glacial lakes, which are becoming like a ticking time bomb. You can refreeze the glacial lakes using various technologies, and we are working on them. You can siphon them out and refreeze them. By siphoning, you reduce the risk of the lake, and by refreezing, you make it into an asset that can serve people downstream. So refreezing glacial lakes to refreezing streams, freeze, freeze, freeze should be the strategy to keep it at the height that it is. Now, these artificial glaciers also will not go for very long because there's less and less snow, less and less freezing in coming decades, and therefore we'll have to learn to live with rain and more rain. So therefore the strategy should be to learn to soak it, to absorb it in the mountains, soak, soak, soak. And that can be done in many ways by vegetating the high valleys. We're trying to do that so that there are indigenous trees and shrubs and bushes that grow that holds the water. You can have swales, you can have check dams, and in flood-prone streams, you can have ice dams that are made in winter but disappear in summer when floods come, so no obstruction or destruction. So therefore, soak, recharge. You can have recharge wells and various other mechanisms to recharge the whole mountain so that water comes slowly, because when water comes fast, as it will, as rains increase, it will cause destruction, floods. When it is soaked or frozen, it comes very gently, being very useful to people. Now, thirdly, the strategy should be educate, 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 because one needs to learn how to do these things. So education of communities, education of youth and children to deal with the new changes in the mountains. And for that, in Ladakh, we are starting a whole university called Himalayan Institute of Alternatives Ladakh, or HIAL, to basically learn and teach to deal with climate change. And I'm happy that Gitanjali is here, who heads that university. People around the mountains will have to relearn, re-educate themselves to deal with that. Now, these things can be done in the mountains. At these institutes, we also do solar heated buildings that can be plus 20 inside when it is minus 20 outside. All these we need to learn, but we cannot stop glacial melting with these mechanisms that I just said. Great for local strategies, but not enough to save our glaciers. So the answer for that is not so much in the mountains, high Himalayas. It's more in big cities like Islamabad, Karachi, Mumbai, Beijing, New York, London, because that's where climate change is starting. We cannot also just blame them far away, but cities that are closer to the Himalayas, Hindu Kush, are even more to blame, whether it is in Kashmir or Punjab, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar. These cities not only add to the carbon dioxide, but they also release black carbon, which goes with the wind and sits on our glaciers and thereby melts it even faster because black absorbs sun's energy. So our message to the world always has been, please live simply in the big cities so that we in the mountains simply live. And this message needs to reach the whole world, and I'm so happy that media and leadership have a great role to play, and in Pakistan I see Dawn Media is taking that responsibility as a champion of environment. I wish all countries, and in my country, a media house really takes this responsibility like here. Similarly, leadership has to take charge, world leaders. While many world leaders are now denying climate change even, I'm happy that Prime Minister Modi has not only taken many initiatives, but also launched a special mission called Mission Life, Lifestyle for the Environment, to urge the people to live simpler life. This kind of initiative we expect from leadership, from media, from celebrities all, so that we later, have a safer place to live in the mountains. Finally, I want to congratulate and thank UN for declaring 2025 as the UN Year of Glacial Preservation. That's an amazing initiative like this. So with such initiatives, I have some hope that we still will live, survive, and perhaps thrive in the mountains. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sonam, for that impassioned, practical, realistic, hands-on, innovative message to all of us. Now, let me turn on to Ayesha Khan, and over to you.
Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon. I'm sure everyone's very tired, but I think we just need 5 or 10 minutes of your time and attention. I'll pick up where Sonam left to say that this is the year of glacier preservation, the year 2025. So I begin by saying that mountains are marvel of nature. Mountains are also sacred places. But I think we also need to remember that mountains are home to mountain communities. We have tourists who flock these places. They go there for adventure sports. They go there for recreation, perhaps sometimes for spiritual healing as well. But they leave the place degraded. They don't understand that mountain communities rely on these ecosystems for their ecological goods and services to survive. So this is very, very important that we learn to understand that when we enter a sacred domain, and mountains are sacred domains to me. I've been working with mountain communities for the last 2 decades, and I visited Nepal and other countries with mountains, and there is something about mountain communities that goes beyond this. For us in South Asia, it's very, very important to remember that these mountains are a source of water for us. When we talk about the Himalaya, Karakoram, and the Hindu Kush, they directly supply water to 240 million people and indirectly to about 1.8 billion people who rely on these water supplies. So if we do not take an integrated approach to their management, we will not be able to retain the flows that we are getting. So I want to highlight just in the short time that I have 2 things that are very important to me. One is the centrality of mountain communities and communities everywhere, because all the approaches that we take or make have to be community-centric. And the other one is the imperative of taking a regional approach. I say this because we live in a geography that extends from the cryosphere to the coast, whether we look at it from the regional lens or we look at it from a country lens. What happens in the mountains does not stay in the mountains. It cascades and it has an impact on all the communities till it reaches the coast, which means that communities and their resilience is very important. Communities who live in rural areas really do not understand what's happening to them or why these things are happening to them. So that's where the civil society role comes in. They have to step in. They have to serve as a bridge between science and policy. They have to train these communities. They have to educate these communities. They have to pass on the messages. For example, the whole day today, we've received a lot of knowledge, information that was disseminated in this room to an already perhaps informed audience, but these messages are taken by civil society actors to the communities and explained in simplified language what it means to their lives and livelihoods. On the regional front, I just want to say that we are standing at the crossroads of history right now, where we have to negotiate both with nature and with the countries that surround us in the region, especially with the upper riparian. Now, anyone who's been involved in negotiations knows that there are 2 approaches to negotiation. One is the distributive approach, which means that there's always a winner and a loser, and the winner tries to get the lion's share, the maximum, without caring what happens to the other half or the other 3/4 of the community, because the idea is to cut a deal that is beneficial for you. This is unjust and therefore unsustainable. The other approach to negotiation is an integrative approach where there are no losers and everyone is a winner, because here we're not looking to get the maximum pieces of that pie. We're trying to see how we can make pies so that everyone gets a share, and that is the just system, and that is what lasts long time. So I think at the country level, within communities, we need to create more awareness. We also need to find a way how to co-create policies, because from what I see, the policies that are made do not really reflect the hopes, aspirations, and the priorities of the community. So we have to go to the communities and we have to co-create those policies that are more reflective. And at the regional level, we have to develop a very integrative negotiating approach in which I think climate diplomacy will be extremely important. The two key words for me that are always very important in everything that you do in life, but especially in climate action, are balance and harmony. We have to strike that balance so that we live in harmony with other countries in the region and we live in harmony with climate and with nature. So if we are looking to move towards social, ecological, and democratic equity, civil society plays an important role, because at the end of the day, it is civil society that elects the leadership who take the policy decisions that decide the future of where things will go, how things will happen. So with that, I will give it back to you, Enrica, in the hope that, like the other panelists have said, that this is the first step in the right direction and it will lead to more things that will perhaps bring us together regionally to work together and take collective ownership. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ayesha, for that last appeal as well, for that connectivity, which is quintessential. Let me usurp the remaining time by giving you each a question to answer. Time pressure. But let me start with Romina. Given your leadership in Pakistan's climate policy, can you elaborate succinctly the government strategies to mitigate glacial melt impacts, and how does the GLOF2 project contribute to this effort? Over to you.
Thank you very much. As you said, that I'll try to be very short, relevant, and focused. Well, when it comes to the importance and, of course, the policy, of course, that is something where the Ministry of the Climate Change and Environmental Coordination, they're taking, of course, putting an immense value along with by engaging all the experts and civil society and by keeping everything into the monitoring and all that. So promoting that, how we can promote the sustainability practices in ecotourism as well, and protected the area management, which is very much important, as Ayesha has mentioned. Then Pakistan, I really wanted to share, as we just heard from my dear panelists, Pakistan has launched glacier protection initiatives under the National Climate Change Policy. Then the GLOF2 project funded by GCF and UNDP aims at community-based early warning system in northern areas, because in that, of course, need to enhance more the transboundary water diplomacy and between South Asian nations for joint monitoring and response. And then, of course, the very important, I believe, is a flagship program as well that is called Recharge Pakistan Initiative. In that program, aimed at using of the nature-based solutions to restore wetlands and enhance flood resilience along with the Indus. So in this way, the ministry is doing the coordination, actively working towards protecting wetlands and ecosystem. That is very much important. And of course, in that, as we are focusing more over to the climate diplomacy towards, so of course, and I believe the policies after day by day, of course, there is so much room or places there for coming up for the better towards the betterment. I tried to be short.
Romina, that was excellent. And now over to you, Sanam. Your iStupa project has received global recognition. And how can such community-driven solutions be scaled up across South Asia to address water shortages resulting from glacial melt?
Sorry. Yeah. Thank you. For technologies and ways of dealing with such issues, which are all new, there must be, first of all, laboratories where things are tested, experimented, like we are doing at Himalayan Institute. And then it has to be disseminated to people so that it can be scaled up throughout the Hindu Kush Himalayas. And one way we are seeing in Ladakh at Hayal, the Himalayan Institute, is to get people from all of these places for courses, modules that they can participate, learn the techniques, and go back to their places and become partners in implementing in their own context. Yeah? That way, because technologies are not easy for every village community to invent. So there could be regional laboratories. We hope Himalayan Institute of Ladakh can become Himalayan Institute of Nepal, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and various countries where you prepare the young and the old for understanding their climate, their context, and coming up with solutions. So education would be an important way, or training and empowering, enabling, capacity building. Then engaging the community should be a part of it. Like in Ladakh, we always try to take the community along to finally implement it. Then in that case, you don't need so much funding because the community does it as an emergency. But still, there will be need, even if reduced, resources to support implementation of such techniques, whether it is check dams or ice stupas or bluff refreezing, will need resources. And there's no reason why these places should be punished to have their own resources, or even the countries. I mean, globally this is being done, so the global community should be there to take part. I know there are various ways of financing climate change adaptation and mitigation, but maybe there is need for even better and bigger, and maybe people could include water in carbon credit. You could maybe club water credit and carbon credit so that whenever a community restores water, corporates get that credit for restoring water also and not just carbon, because it's two sides of the same coin. On a bigger scale, I think, our foundations of our economics needs to change globally to finance such action of emergencies. Like in the past, our currencies were based on gold, which made some sense. It's against the gold that you draw your currency. Now it is not. And now it's very funny digital mining for bitcoins that don't do anything to solve the problem. Instead, consume even more energy, guzzle more energy, cause more of these. Everybody comes up with their own coin. I think there should be actually, the new coin should be carbon or oxygen coin, because that's your lifeline, more important than gold. If that is done, then nations who conserve their forests, enlarge their forests or conserve water, will immediately get the wealth. They can draw rupees against that, the trees or the water conserved, and they'll be wealthier. It's like mining oil, but oil is physical. You have it, so you see it. This could be something the global and UN can take an initiative in that, to consider oxygen and water as the gold of tomorrow and link it to our currency so that nations that do the most are naturally wealthy, just like having oil. Yeah, things like that. But anyway, lots of many ideas. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sonam. I think that's a very innovative idea as well. Let me quickly turn to Ayesha and say, how can civil society organizations foster greater community engagement and regional collaboration to combat glacial melt and its impact?
Thank you very much again for that question. I think I'll go to the regional part first, because I think we have to first understand that every country in this region is an upper or lower riparian to another state, and we cannot change our geography. So we have to learn to work with each other. The water flows from Bhutan downwards, and we rely on these waters all the way down to Afghanistan. So if we don't promote hydro-solidarity and we don't learn how to do more with less water, which will be the inevitable reality in our future, we will not be able to collaborate. Now, why civil society role becomes more important at this time in fostering collaboration and enhancing communication is because South Asia, despite being one large landmass, is perhaps the least integrated region in the world. We share land, water, air, but politically, we have differences which keep us from coming together and pooling our energies and strengths together to promote the resilience of the region as a whole. So civil society can be that bridge for now to improve communication, enhance coordination between civil society actors, showcase certain projects and pilots that enhance the value of collaborative approach, and take that agenda forward. So I think that overall, I keep emphasizing on this point that we have to put other differences on one side for right now, because right now, what we are fighting for is battle for our survival. We have to survive and exist first before we turn to other issues. And climate action and climate change are both critical threats that are existential in nature. So we have to decide, what do we want to bequeath to the next generation, chaos or some level of stability? So working together on climate change really requires civil society action, and it requires political will, it requires social harmony, and it requires collaboration between academia, researchers, and scientists within the region, all of whom have pockets of excellence and expertise and examples of best practices which they can learn and share with each other to promote South Asia. But for that, we also need to start looking at this region as one South Asia, so that we work for all of humanity and not just concentrate on our individual countries.
Thank you very much, Ayesha. In the interest of time, I'm not trying to summarize all of that, but just some key bullets that have come up in terms of recommendations, also catching and touching on what our keynote speakers have said. I think clearly the impacts are clear of glacial melt. It goes beyond just one or two sectors. It is all of community impacts. It is transboundary in its nature, and the adaptation and mitigation efforts have to be systemic. So I think some of the takeaways here is integrating traditional knowledge with modern technology, enhancing regional cooperation through frameworks and innovative policies, strengthening community-based initiatives and bringing that alternate technology, thinking global but acting local, the importance of investing in climate adaptation strategies and using global partnerships and vertical financing and other opportunities available, the cross-border data sharing, the coordinated policy efforts, and the importance of sustained investments in climate change. And also, I think, Sunam, as you have also pointed out, and creating it bottom-up from a grassroots level has also been highlighted here. And again, I'd like to pick up on Ayesha's point that here we need that regional connectivity and the political willingness to come together, transcend some of the other issues that we may have challenges with, but embrace this issue as something that is a cross-cutting for all our peoples in the region and beyond. So today's discussion, I think, reinforces the urgency for our collective action. It's a call to action like in the morning, and I hope this dialogue on this particular issue serves as a catalyst for meaningful policies, innovative approaches, and interventions to safeguard the beautiful, fantastic water towers of South Asia. Thank you very much.
A big thank you to all our speakers for taking out time. We will now take a short 10-minute tea break and reconvene for the last two sessions of the day.